it's time to fly.
It was a quite long television ad by the Times of India, the largest newspaper in a country of 1 billion people. They published this manifesto on the front page. They said it's high time to stop complaining about politicians. It's time to do something. They made an offer to readers. If you believe you know how to lead this country, step forward and we will help you to get involved in politics. We will pay you for your training at the best school of leadership in London. We will give you money for a public welfare project of your wish, and we will make you a public figure so it will be much easier for you to contest in real elections. 37,000 potential leaders raised their hands to this initiative. Their entries were screened by journalists. Then they were invited to interviews with an external jury. The jury chose 8 candidates in 8 different cities, 8 best candidates. It was like a semi-final. And the Times of India invited the largest TV channel to host a unique reality show for the next 10 weeks. The whole nation was watching these people fighting during debates, live tasks, etc. to win the contest. They were evaluated by a panel of top Indian businessmen, politicians, social activists, senior editors of the Times, and other eminent citizens. The final winner, Mr. Misra from Bangalore, was chosen in January this year and was announced by former Indian President Abdul Kalam. This campaign captured the soul of India. And as the Gandhi said, we must be the change that we want to see in the world. It empowered new community leaders and engaged old statesmen. Celebrities like movie stars as this one, and sportsmen, writers, successful businessmen, all of them wanted to appear in the ads for the Times for free. Can you believe that the whole campaign cost the Times just $2 million? What is also unique about this campaign is that an idea came from the marketing department, not from the editorial one. However, they were both cooperating during the campaign. It won this year the INMA Best of Show Award and Grand Prix at the Cannes Lion International Advertising Festival. And we are proud to introduce to you a guy who stood behind this campaign. Mr. Rahul Kansal, Chief Marketing Officer at the Times of India, is our special guest this morning. Please come on stage.
That unless newspapers are driven by the market, driven by genuine reader concerns, we will fall into the kind of trap that you in fact illustrated through that research example of newspapers not necessarily being in sync with what readers really want. So while we have 2 clearly parallel streams, and my counterpart, the editorial director of Times of India, clearly is a colleague and at my level.
So you are not a supervisor of an editor?
It's just that structurally we have created a system where there is a mutuality of interest. For example, a lot of, let's say, his manpower needs, or his, let's say, increments and promotions and so on. They need my buy-in, for example. And so therefore there's a broad overall commercial and managerial control over that process. But that's something, I certainly don't, I don't be heavy-handed about that. Mm-hmm. I just sort of, we play it very collaboratively. At the same time, the content strategy for the newspaper, we have today 12 or 15 editions. And each edition...
50 editions in the whole country,
in the country. And as...
Are they any different?
As people might know, India is virtually a continent. The different parts of the country have very different cultural, political, preoccupations and so on. Different competitors in different markets. So we clearly need a highly localized strategy for what the newspaper should look and feel like, what should be the concerns it takes up in each edition. And our management has believed that it's probably people with the kind of background that I come from can use research well. You have a better sensitivity to what's going on in the market to broadly direct the overall content strategy of the newspaper. So that's something we do. We do fairly rigorous research as an annual study, for example, across 8 markets, where we track how the brand is being perceived on some of our core values, like we wish to be an optimistic paper. We wish to be a paper that's very youthful and vibrant. So on many of these attributes, we check these, and both editorial and marketing buy into certain objectives that we'll try and move on a 5-point scale, let's say, from 3.9 to 4.4 over the next 3 years, whatever. We have objective things that we buy into. So that's the manner in which I broadly oversee the content.
So how do you deal with your colleague who is an editorial director? You tell them that, your newspaper is too sad, it should be much more optimistic, and he has to,
No, it doesn't work like that at all, actually. It just works collaboratively. In fact, I must share with you that when they created this structure, and I joined about 6 odd years ago, I came across an extremely wary and I would say perhaps even hostile set of colleagues. Not hostile, but for a long time before this, the Times of India, as a company, had tried to ensure that journalists didn't remain the kind of gods and prima donnas that they had tended to become. In many journalistic groups in India, and our owners were very clear that they were paranoid actually of the way newspapers had gone or were going in the Western world, and they wanted to ensure that the newspaper in India continuously adapts itself to the needs of young people and does many other things strategically which we felt were right things to do commercially. So as a result, they tried to ensure that this structure where editorial weren't a law into themselves but really worked very closely with management. They had tried this for 2, 3, 4 years, but without a dedicated person looking after this. So when I first came, there was a lot of wariness, okay, what the hell, etc. But I think to a large extent it was for me and my colleagues to ensure that we didn't seem like some big brothers hanging around and trying to breathe down on journalists, but rather that we had the same goals. Initially, in fact, what I did was, like I think your experience is turning out to be, merely support the great editorial work that the journalists were already doing. We said, wow, this is a great package. For this election, you're planning to do all these things. Why don't we just package it, maybe do an ad film on it, or maybe a radio spot or two, and merely bring to light the great work you're already doing. When they began to see that their own work was beginning to look good, more people became aware of it, and once you package it, give it some advertising pizzazz around it, it makes the content that much more noticeable to the world. So when they found that there was good value in this, they actually began to seek out collaborations. So this India Poised and Teach India must be the 8th or 10th such collaborative exercise that we've done.
Can you tell me the story, how you were convincing, you meet with the editor-in-chief, with the editorial director, and you tell him that, I have a great idea, I think that you should find a new leader for this country, probably the president, for example, and it should be done, within the next 3 months. How it looked like?
No, actually, this idea grew sort of progressively. We actually started by saying that to ourselves, that I think unlike the traditional wisdom that newspapers should be merely reporters of news. They shouldn't have they should maybe restrict their opinions to one page of the newspaper, but otherwise they should be objective reporters of news. Somehow for them to become involved in the life of a country in an activist way, somehow is not proper for a newspaper, is somehow the sort of sense one gets from a lot of journalists. That's something that marketing helped question. To say, look, there is a leadership vacuum out here. A lot of, Indians today believe, and anybody who's been to India will realize, the quality administration still sucks. People still find it very difficult to get the licenses to start a business in India, and so on. So the country is growing because of its entrepreneurial energy, but not necessarily because the government and the bureaucracy is working. So as a result of which, I think people seek something like a newspaper to play and fill that role. So we egged them on to say, look, let's start at the city level. To say that, okay, let's say in Bangalore, transportation was virtually coming to a collapse. We said, look, why don't we organize a public debate on how to make the transportation better? Let's have panel discussions. Let's have people writing in.
This is an idea for the colleagues from the Netherlands.